School's out, but learning never ends. Do you think you can guess who I am? I am the wife of a president. I lived at the White House during a very tumultuous time, the War of 1812. I was in the White House when the British came and threw firebombs through the windows and caught the White House on fire. People say that I had my wits about me, that I just took everything down from the White House and told the servants to get this, put it in the cart, take that, put it in the cart, do this, put it in the cart. And the one thing that I'm most famous for saving in that fire, my husband wasn't there, was the portrait of George Washington. I had the servants break the frame because it was bolted onto the wall, tear it down, and roll up that famous portrait. If you ask people, they might say that that's what I'm most famous for, but really, it's not. I was married before I married the president, and my husband and my first son died of the fever. So I was introduced to my husband by a man named Aaron Burr. Well, we had an amazing romance, he, though, being 17 years older than I. But we married, and my husband became Thomas Jefferson's vice president. Well, Thomas Jefferson, when he was president, had no wife. And he would come to our house, and I would have the best parties. I loved parties. I loved talking to people. I love mingling. I like making sure that everybody is happy. I love everything about parties. So President Jefferson came up to me and said, "Would you mind just hosting some parties at the White House for me?" And of course I said, "Absolutely, I would love that." So at the White House, I would have grand affairs for President Jefferson. Of course, my husband was there, and I would walk around and work the room. I would talk to everybody and introduce my husband, who was the father of the Constitution. So he was fairly famous in his own right, but rather shy. So he needed me to introduce him to many people. Most people say that the reason he then became president after President Jefferson was because of me. As the president's wife, I thought it was very important to open up the White House to many different people in the community. So every Wednesday, the White House doors were open. You could come in, you didn't need an invitation. I didn't care if you were a shoemaker or a mechanic or the King of England. All were welcome in our White House. Now, my husband was not always there. He was busy doing other things, but I made it my point to always talk to the people, and they loved me for it. I made sure that the cook had wonderful homemade ice cream available for all of our visitors. If you were visiting Washington, you would always try to come on a Wednesday because you knew that the doors were always open, because the White House is the people's house. We served 2 terms as president and me as his wife, and then we moved back to Virginia to our home named Mount Pillier. It was a plantation in Virginia. We lived there many years until my husband died. When he died, my son, who was a gambler and a drunk, sold our plantation, and I was quite literally homeless. Well, the people of Washington heard about my plight, and they said, "Oh no, I will never be homeless. And they gave me a beautiful yellow house to live in the rest of my days. I had servants and I had food. They even gave me a special chair in the House of Representatives and in the Senate that had a nameplate on it with my name. When I died, there was a national day of mourning for me. More people came to my funeral than any other person or dignitary in the United States, more than all of them. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, they came to mourn me for weeks because, you see, I was the lady of the people. And a gentleman stood up and gave a eulogy about my life, and he said, "This is our first lady." So first lady, the term used for the wife of a president, started with me. So, have you figured out who I am yet? That's right. I am Dolly Madison, the first lady of the father of our Constitution, James Madison. Now a little pup wants to say hello. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Get her, Denali. Get her. Yeah, get her. Get her.